Hi, my name is Nathan Robbins, and I am the Head of Business Development for OSS&BSS here at Ericsson North America. Today I'd like to spend a little bit of time walking through our vision for big data analytics and customer experience here at Ericsson and talk a little about where we think the market is going. Now, before I get started with my presentation, I wanted to share some results of a recent survey we did with over 100 C-suite members of telco operators here in the US. I think there's two very interesting insights that come out that help set the stage for the presentation. We asked this group of operators which stakeholders within their organizations were most driving the need for analytics. And the two interesting things out of here are, first, you can see that marketing and the executive leadership teams are the two organizations that have the strongest push towards using big data analytics in their businesses. But even more insightful than this is not just which two are the most important, but that of these 6 different groups that we asked, every single one of them is seeing quite a bit of traction in the big data analytics space. And so this tells us that across the entire organization, particularly at operators, big data analytics is very key and important to how they're driving their future business strategies. Now here at Ericsson, a lot of you have heard us talk about a network society, and this is the vision that everything that can benefit from having a connection will eventually be connected. And this is important because we look at this increasing connectivity not just as fundamental to driving additional traffic and more devices across a network, but that these new devices and these new use cases for operators, it's really driving this change in society, and that it's fundamentally changing the way in which we innovate our businesses, in which we collaborate as companies, and ultimately in the way that we produce results and govern our societies. Now, a fundamental tenet of the network society is that we're seeing more and more devices being connected. If we look over the past, it took nearly 100 years to connect the first 1 billion connected places. It then is taking about 25 years to connect the first 5 billion people. And as we look forward, we can see that by the end of 2020, we estimate that there's going to be approximately 26 billion connected devices. Now, this is a feat that was done in less than 15 years, and this is well towards our vision of having 50 billion connected devices. Now, it's one thing simply to connect more people and connect more places, and of course, increase the number of devices across the network. But one of the interesting things to think about is that we're exponentially growing the amount of data that is flowing over our networks. Not only are we increasing the amount of data going over the networks, but we're also increasing the type of data, and we're increasing the complexity of the data that's being over these networks. Now, all of this new connectivity is driving new behaviors. We're seeing more functionality and more communication that's driving entirely new business models. This slide highlights some really interesting statistics about what can happen in a single day. From the $13 million it's generated in crowdfunding each day to the over 133 million hours of YouTube video that are watched. Even on Instagram or Facebook, somewhere north of 2.5 billion photos being posted or likes on Facebook. Now, the numbers here are, of course, very staggering, but the really important change that we're seeing is the vast amount of opportunities for people, for businesses, and society. Now, these are all things that we can think about and understand from a business model perspective what we're doing today. But as we're building the networks of tomorrow, it's very important to also be thinking about the use cases of tomorrow. How will somebody be using their phone? How will someone be using their network in the year 2030? We start thinking about driverless cars, about agriculture, smart agricultural systems, smart vineyards. All of these types of use cases are going to drastically increase the number of sensors that we have, the amount of data being collected, and of course, with this vast amount of data, how do we understand it and gain insights from it? So it's critical as we think about our big data systems of today that we also look forward to the future and think about how we'll be using them in 2030. Now, a different way of looking at how we've evolved over the past few years, it's really to look at 3 key shifts that we've seen. The first is that we've seen a huge shift into mobility from fixed access. This is important because mobility is no longer just a special use case. We're really looking at things where mobile is the key focus of most telco businesses. It's interesting, we look at what Google's Larry Page talked about just recently in April 2015. He announced that 60% of their traffic came from mobile devices. This is an increase from 50% just 1 year ago. They're really seeing the focus on mobility. Second, we're seeing a transition to broadband from an era of having limited data. So the volume of data that can be produced and transferred across networks is growing exponentially. This means that we have the ability to both use more information in our decision-making process, but we also have access to real-time information to better enable us to make real-time decisions. And now finally, the third key shift, we've seen a huge shift from the hardware and software era to now in the cloud era. All the processing no longer just being done on a local PC or in a huge data center, but really we're centralizing all this into the cloud so that we can have more real-time information, more updating from an entertainment services perspective, or enterprise services perspective, ensuring that everyone's using the latest and greatest. Now, if we look at all three of these key shifts, one key fundamental tenet is big data. Big data has really enabled us to leverage all three of these shifts. And it's important that we now see this evolution to evolve to not just being overwhelmed by this data, but really how can we best use this data so that we can create value in our organization. If we look at the assets of many operators, there's this expectation to return a particular ROI, or return on investment. It's important that as we look towards the future, that data be treated as any of these other critical assets, and that we're able to measure and monetize that data so we can achieve an ROI, just like any other asset. Now, as operating systems need to be converted from legacy systems, we must be ready for future changes, and agility really is the key to that. And when we look at a big data perspective, it's important that we fundamentally look at how are we meeting the needs of customers? How are we providing a better customer experience? How do we ensure that our networks and we achieve the agility from a networks perspective in the network planning, rollout, and optimization, and also make sure that we're managing the complexity of our ever-growing networks. And finally, from a services perspective, how can we leverage big data to bring new services to market to both drive new revenue and also increase customer experience? Now, I find it very difficult to talk about big data analytics without talking about customer experience, because I found the two very tightly coupled together. And in this increasingly competitive atmosphere among telco operators, we look at an era where we're over 100% saturated from a market penetration perspective, we're seeing both the need to reduce OPEX and CAPEX, but we're also seeing a need to increase efficiency and increase transparency throughout the company. Because at the end of the day, the goal is to provide an improved quality of experience for our customers. Now, by the year 2018, there will be an expected 339 million smartphone subscriptions in North America. Currently, we have about 283 million, so this is a 20% increase. Now, if we look at a traditional user, here we can look at Sally. She's an average customer, and at the end of the day, she is looking for three key things. She's looking for fair prices, great service, and friendly interfaces as a standard for her service. Now, at first glance, all three of these things are something that pretty much all 339 million subscribers are going to be feeling. But when we take it a level lower, we realize that what Sally defines as good service or a fair price is very different from what Bob or Billy are thinking. And so we realize that we can't approach all of these customers with a one-size-fits-all approach. And this is where big data is key, because big data can enable us to offer personalized experiences. We need to make sure that we're meeting the expectations of every customer, and the only way to do that is through personalization and through offering an improved customer experience. Because at the end of the day, operators want to make sure that they keep the customers they have today and not have them churn to another operator. Now, big data is a huge potential not only today, but in the future. The recent Gartner report of all enterprises, not just telcos, said that 10% are effectively using analytics today. but that by the year 2020, 75% of enterprises are expecting to use big data as a critical component of their business strategy. And the key drivers for this, of course, is that big data allows operators to see, understand, and optimize their new opportunities. And in fact, Gartner also said that by the year 2017, in just over a year, big data discovery will evolve into a distinct market category. Now, what are some of the key market drivers from a business analytics perspective? The first is that we see there's an increasing need for complex market segmentation. So to offer that personalization, you need to better segment your customers. You can't only segment based on maybe a geographic region or type of service offering, but you really need to get in and understand how is a user using their services and how can you best provide a customer experience through either personalized offerings, personalized customer service, or personalized pricing. Secondly, we need to identify new revenue streams, and the best way to do this is to leverage the data you have to either better upsell or better optimize your offerings so that you bring new offerings to the table to possibly meet underutilized customers. And finally, how can you use big data to bring automated optimization of key business processes? As you bring new services to market, as you bring about this personalization, you can't be hiring more people. So more and more of the day-to-day business and processes needs to be automated so that you can do things more efficiently and in a more personalized manner. Now, when we talk about the data-driven operator, we really see three key areas where big data analytics can help. The first is around customer experience. The second is around efficiency, and the third is around growth. So when we talk about customer experience, we really define this as data-enhanced customer experience. How can you leverage your big data insights and the knowledge you have about your customers and their behavior to provide individualized customer experiences that drive individualized long-term loyalty? Secondly, when we talk about data-driven efficiencies, it's really about taking advantage of the information that's available within the organization in order to work smarter and reduce costs. And finally, when we talk about data-derived growth, we're looking about how can we find new innovations and new revenue streams that are sparked by big data. So how do you become an operator that accomplishes all of this? How can you become an agile operator that's leveraging all of your data, getting insights from them, and acting in real time? In conversations with many people that I hear people saying, I bought a tool last year, so I'm doing big data. It's important to understand, though, that success in big data is not just about an endpoint. When that one tool doesn't work, the traditional thing to do is throw more tools at it. However, it's critical that we realize that that's just one layer. The technology piece, tools, are of course very important in how you develop your big data strategy. But it's critical that you also involve your business teams and you need to involve your operations teams to make sure that across all of your processes, across all of your business models, you're leveraging big data. Because big data transformation is an ongoing transformation. And to truly be successful in 5 years, it's not about installing a new system or buying a new tool, but it's about how can you best incorporate into your daily ways of doing business. Now here at Ericsson as an operator, we believe that it's really important to approach analytics from a telco-specific perspective. With new revenue streams you need to produce, with understanding all the data that you have across the network, you need a partner that best understands what it's like to be an operator, to understand the agility and the change required. Now at Ericsson, being the largest network provider worldwide and one of the largest operators supporting over 2 billion subscribers worldwide, we are the type of partner that can help you capture this transformation. So in summary, how do you capture all of this to become an operator that excels at leveraging their data? The first is having real-time access to information. You have to react before a customer does. You have to show them that you noticed it before they did. The second is becoming agile, your ability to respond with new offers, new services, and becoming faster than your competition. And finally, data utilization. One of the most underutilized assets you have at a company is the data you have, but it's also one of your most valuable. So you need to look at data as any other asset and measure the return on investment that's coming from it. So I would like to end with a quote, and in this case, you have to learn the rules of the game, and then you have to play better than anyone else. This is from Albert Einstein, and the way I approach this from a big data perspective is, big data is critical to any business. Every operator is going to be going down the road of big data. Many have already started. They're going to continue to evolve. But the biggest advantage you will have is that when you not only learn how to use big data, but you learn how to use it in a way that's better than your competitors and better than your fellow operators, because it's then that you can truly leverage your insights and make your business decisions in real time. Thank you for your time today.